expert's view about what is assessment, why assessment, and how to assess. Here with us, Professor Ram Ganesh, Head, Department of Educational Technology, Bharathidasan University, Tiruchirappalli. Welcome, Professor.
Welcome.
You are in the field of education for the past 20 years. You may come across different types of learners and assessment system. Please share your ideas on the present scenario assessment system.
Yes. In the present scenario of higher education, the term assessment invites a lot of attention. Various agencies like National Assessment and Accreditation Council, recently MHRD has launched NIRF, National Institutions Ranking Framework. They are all known for assessment, the term assessment. So in that way, as far as my little experience is concerned, I would like to look at the term assessment as an important entity for addressing the different components of higher education. As far as the particular term is concerned, although it draws a lot of attention among the academics and industrialists, even all the common people and institutionalized people. Assessment means the value of the judgment of a people based on their performance. Perhaps assessment should help us to appraise them and help them to introspect themselves. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses in that way? So when I introspect myself in terms of assessment techniques that people use, which would really help me to build my personal profile, and it would really make me understand what I have learned and what need to be learned, so that I will be able to attain the optimum level of learning. In that way, assessment is a beautiful term which is considered to be a value of judgment of an object or an individual. But there are different types of assessment we deal with, and in a daily routine in any institution, academic institutions, we use assessment techniques like different types of assessment. But there are so many types of assessment, but I would like to spell out the important assessment that we use in educational institutions or academic institutions. For example, formative assessment. So it is one of the important assessment, which is concerned about the ongoing assessment of the performance of the students or the teachers or the institutions or the industries. So in that way, now you see, when you assess them during their performance, now the teacher, suppose if you assess the students, during the performance, the teacher will have a beautiful platform or create a beautiful platform for offering feedback for the students. And that would really help the students where they stand and how they have to improve upon, so that they have to win the confidence of the system now. And they must be able to win the confidence of the examinations here. So in that way, formative assessment is considered to be an important assessment. But I don't know, fortunately or unfortunately, the summative assessment, a kind of assessment which is given due importance than that of the formative assessment. But as far as my views are concerned, we have to give much better importance. I would say formative assessment is more important than summative assessment. I don't say that summative assessment is not important, but still formative assessment where the teacher will be able to offer feedback, and that would give an idea for the students to improve themselves and spot out the gray area where they have to improve upon. Perhaps the teacher would be able to identify the learning difficulties of the students by offering their feedback, and that would give a beautiful platform for the teacher to devise new strategies to address the learning difficulties of the students. So in that way, formative assessment, so-called ongoing assessment system, which is to be given due importance as we give importance to summative assessment. But in the summative assessment is also very important, because as a whole, when entire course is over, sometime, for example, we consider the semester examination as a summative assessment, which is very important, because what extent the students are able to perform up to the expectations, whether they have really achieved the course outcomes, the objectives that we have designed, which is also very important, and whether he is fit to pass on to the next courses. So in that way, summative assessment is very important, but for formative assessment, sometime when you assess when you have your summative assessment, so I don't think so it will be able to bring forth good meaning in it. So in that way, both are complement to each other. Say, I am not supporting, but still both are complement to each other. But ongoing assessment, a teacher finds every possibility to provide feedback for them to improve upon it. So in that way, both are complement to each other. But at the same time, there is one assessment which I consider personally very important, that is diagnostic assessment. Perhaps you have to diagnose, their previous knowledge, what they have learned. So which would really help them, unless you recall my previous knowledge, sometimes the teacher would not be able to devise strategy to address my problems. So in that way, you have to diagnose my previous knowledge. So in that way, the diagnostic assessment is more concerned about the previous knowledge of the students with reference to the context, whether the subject is in English or mathematics or science, whatever it may be, so that the teacher will have an idea to put the content across to the student, so that the student will be able to concretize it and enjoy the teaching of the teacher. And they will never take aversion towards the subject when their learning difficulties are diagnosed, when their previous knowledge are diagnosed. And that would give an idea for the teacher to really find out what the students are. So in that way, diagnostic assessment is very important. But now, the assessment called norm reference assessment is very important. It is good but not adequate. Because you see, when you assess an individual or a student or an institution only by means of the marks, norm reference, by means of norms, it is good. It may give some direction how we have to go about to help them, but it is inadequate. I would say the best assessment a teacher must think of, embracing is criterion based assessment. So criteria based, the assessment which is criteria centered. So that is missing right now in higher education. What kind of qualities the higher education student at any level, at undergraduate level or at PG level or at even in colleges of education training level. Now what happens? The criteria which is more important, what extent, because you see the assessment means which has to assess the high impact knowledge, skills, proficiencies and attitude or the social commitment. So in that way, the skill and attitude, you need to establish some criteria. So if you want to become a teacher, for example, you have got to do your B.Ed. So when you do your B.Ed, now the criteria is, the competence in teaching. So whether you have the in-depth in knowledge, whether you have ICT skills, whether you have attitude towards your subject, whether you have good characteristics to devise the strategies to put the content across to the students. So these things are very important now. Therefore, criterion based, that is why we say educational objectives or course objectives or program objectives or program educational objectives. Why? Because they are all criteria based. Now the assessment has to address the high impact knowledge to be developed and skills to be acquired and social commitments to be appreciated. So in that way, I would say the criterion based assessment is very important. So in that way, these are the assessment types. There are personal assessment. There is one more assessment called personal assessment. So personality assessment, even institutional assessment by NAC. NAC has come out with 7 criteria. So now what happened? The institutions have to rise up to the expectations of the 7 criteria, devised by the NAC. So criterion based assessment is being done by the NAC. In that way, any academic institution or a teacher must have the thorough knowledge of importance of different assessment like formative assessment, summative assessment, diagnostic assessment, norm reference assessment, and criterion based assessment. Therefore, whenever the assessment is warranted, sometimes certain assessment play a vital role, predominant role with reference to the context. So the teacher has to be very keen to select an appropriate assessment techniques which could really deliver goods for them to assess and judge the value of the individual or the student. Because every student has got a winner within them waiting to be unleashed. Every student has got hidden talents within them. Only thing is the assessment, which is considered to be an important tool to help the students to understand their personal profile. So teachers must be concerned about different types, and they must have the mastery over different types of assessment, so that they would be able to extend their hands to help the students to introspect what are their strength and weakness, so that they need to understand what they have learned and what they have to learn. So in that way, I would like to look at the term assessment.
Thank you, Professor. I hope the learners understand the concept of assessment and different types of assessment. Professor, you are in the field of education technology for the past 20 years. Could you please give a view on e-assessment?
Yeah. See, the assessment, once you understand the assessment, now you are using electronic media to assess. Why? Is it really required? Is it really warranted to use e-assessment? Because we have got manual assessment techniques. We have been age-old techniques we have. We conduct tests and assess. We ask them to orally present their materials and assess. So likewise, as we have discussed different types of assessment, we have been using it. But e-assessment, is, efficiency based. The efficiency is very important right now. The reason is, now efficiency, which means the speed and accuracy. What extent you are able to assess your own fellow students at a given space is very important. The pace really matters here. Suppose, for example, for a researcher, if he wants to, circulate a questionnaire to all the teachers, for example, the attitude towards the ICT, information and communication technology, among the teachers. See, for example, a researcher wants to assess or ascertain, the level of attitude or a degree of attitude the teachers have towards integrating ICT in teaching. When you prepare the questionnaire and going to every teacher, going to your sample or population, it is not an easy task. It is not a cakewalk. But there are some agencies, e-assessment like SurveyMonkey. So it's a beautiful e-assessment technique where you can circulate. You can circulate the questionnaire, and with no time, you would be able to send the question across to them, so that you can elicit a response from them, and in no time they will also be able to respond to your items through these things. So therefore, in that way, the e-assessment, plays a vital role, and that will ensure the efficiency, the speed and accuracy also. The speed and accuracy, for which, e-assessment is very important. So for assessing, lot of private agencies are there, and especially, prescribed agencies, and you got to sometime devise your own e-assessment techniques, and the teacher is expected to learn all those things, so that assessing the students at a given pace is possible. So e-assessment is the need of the hour in higher education right now.
So to meet the need of the 21st century learners and their expectancies, we need e-assessment. Is it easy to follow or practice e-assessment in educational institutions in India?
Certainly it is possible. You see, we do online assessment now. Online quiz. We conduct online quiz. We conduct online examination. Virtual quiz. Virtual platform, learning platform you have.
Online.
So certainly now you see leveraging high profile technology is a cakewalk, if I am right. Because you cannot find a student without using Android mobile phones with internet facilities. Now, technology is at their disposal. I would say at their disposal for leveraging it. Therefore, e-assessment is possible. Only thing is you have to build the appropriate infrastructure and other instructional facilities so that e-assessment can be easily possible by higher learning institutions. So higher learning institution can easily adopt e-assessment techniques. Only thing is they have got to develop adequate infrastructure, which really matters.
So by investing one-time time
very good
and money, we can have a good and quality e-assessment system.
Another thing is student will get immediate feedback. They don't have to wait actually. So the immediate feedback is more important. That really creates a scene in students. They responded through electronic e-portfolio or e-platform, but immediately they get the feedback. So they'll be happy about it. So I responded to it and immediately. But it doesn't happen in the manual assessment techniques. Sometimes they write the tests, they have to wait for a couple of weeks to understand their performance. But in e-assessment, immediate feedback is possible through e-assessment. So definitely student will be happy about e-assessment techniques.
Thank you, Professor, for sharing your ideas with us. I hope this will be a great help for the learners. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
I hope you all learned what is assessment, what are the different types of assessment, what is e-assessment, different definitions of e-assessment, importance and need of e-assessment, and challenges of e-assessment. I hope you enjoyed learning. Thank you.